I think that in the book of Revelations, when Apostle John is talking about the fake Jews, he's talking about Apostle Paul. Initially, the apostles didn't trust Paul. Many times we will disregard our first instincts. We will. Because the world tells us to. But I can tell you this, the one thing that God has taught me, especially in the past 5 years, is that's why I want you to surrender every moment to me, so that you know you're following me, so that you don't have to doubt that you're following me, because you've surrendered yourself to me. Every moment, stay right near me. And the biggest thing that in 2020, when God got my attention, God said, don't question your first instinct, because it's coming from me. And if you're surrendered to me and you're following me, then it's coming from me. So the first instinct that the apostles had with Paul was we shouldn't trust him. But he pulled them in. Many of his writings you could say came from God, but they came from the Jewish sect. Nothing against the Jewish sect. Don't even come after me for some anti-Semitism thing here. It's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying he would understand God to a certain level. However, he contradicted Jesus. There are many people in this country, so many, that would say, I'm bringing a false religion. No, I'm not. I have such a headache right now. I just don't. I'm like, God, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't. Let everybody just do whatever they want. I really don't care. Because you can't get through to people. That's the point. You can't get through to people. They're indoctrinated into their denomination. They stand more on the text, just like the Pharisees did, than they do knowing God. And so people are lost because, the whole New Testament is Paul. That's disturbing, isn't it? I mean, it's not the whole New Testament, but that's what people will tell you. Yet Jesus never knew Paul. So by the time Apostle John wrote Revelations, he was referring to the people like Paul. They were Pharisees. They infiltrated. They knew how to use God's word from the Old Testament and wrap it. And you could say, but Paul did, I'm sorry, but I go with what God gives me. And if you want to stand more on written text, then you are a Pharisee that refuses to know God and will only follow written text. But you refuse to know God, which was the very thing that Jesus called the Pharisees out for. You whitewashed tombs. If you want to be a whitewashed tomb, then go ahead. I have a headache right now, so please forgive me. I'm bringing this up because, Ron Jeremy, I just put up a short video about Ron Jeremy, the porn actor, okay? His full name was Ron Jeremy Hyatt. Who owns the Hyatt hotels? The Pritzker family. Something else you should know about Ron Jeremy.
Jeremy's parents were from a middle-class Jewish family with roots in Russia and Poland. While Ron himself was born and raised in Queens, New York, his family background was deeply rooted in the European-American Jewish experience of that era. Family professional background. His parents were highly educated and held notable positions. Father, Arnold Hyatt. He was a physicist and a professor at Queens College. When Ron first started in adult films, his father reportedly told him he didn't care what he did for a living, but insisted he change his last name to protect the family's reputation. Mother. She was a book editor who possessed impressive linguistic skills, speaking fluent French and German. These skills led her to serve in the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, during World War II, where she...
And for those that don't know, the OSS was what the CIA was prior to the CIA being the CIA. His mother. Look at how young these girls are. One of the biggest ways you could tell how young a girl is you could tell when they're not in, when they're in a bra that is loose on the sides. When they're in a bra that is, they haven't quite found the right fit yet. That's always you could tell when they're really, really young. So maybe barely 18. And why does this bring me to Apostle Paul? And I go back and forth. Like, it's because some of the stuff he would say would be right because of the Pharisees would get the written stuff wrong, but he contradicted Jesus. That's what a Pharisee would do to keep their own kingdom. The other thing you should know about Ron Jeremy and his family is, well, yeah, as it said, from Russia and Poland, which is the area of Ukraine, where the Pritzker family also is from. In 2020, Ron Jeremy was finally dealt with because there were 21 victims that he had he raped and assaulted. That's on top of his movies of Debbie Does Dallas. Well, let's just look before we come back to this picture, some of his famous movies. Super Hornio Brothers, Debbie Does Dallas Part 2, Part 3, Grease XXX, Batman XXX, Wanda Whips Wall Street, Deep Inside Annie Sprinkle. I mean, next to John Holmes, Ron Jeremy was the second biggest porn star through the 70s and 80s. So when you people want to go after Candace, and I don't support Candace because she won't call out her own religion. She protects the Catholic Church. She's no different, okay? But when you want to go after her about the Jews, we do have a problem here. Am I saying it's with all Jews? No. But while we drop bombs on other countries and say that we're peacemakers, okay, and throw all over that because we're nobles and because we have big money, that it somehow means God has blessed us, that's all a Pharisaic attitude. The wealth and the money was more important to the Pharisees, okay? How they looked to the world. What they wore meant that they knew best. Well, Jesus showed something totally different. Yet the religions, the Christianity religion has been based more on Paul than it is on Jesus. Why? Because men put it together. I said yesterday, people need to just stick to Apostle John, because he was the most loved apostle, and especially Jesus, obviously. And people argue and say, Paul never contradicted Jesus. Yes, he did. And the very fact that the apostles, their first gut instinct was that we shouldn't trust him, but he was able to pull them in, tells you. Then spring forward to Ron Jeremy. His family, what his family said, I don't care what you do. And for all you people that say, the Trump supporters are so uneducated. Yeah, well, his dad was a physicist. His mother, they were highly educated parents. Look at how that turned out. So don't even start your bullshit with somehow you know better because of your higher education, or you know better because of your wealth. What Jesus showed is it was the wealthy that didn't know better. It was the powerful that didn't know better. It was the Jewish Pharisees that didn't know better. And it's still been going on. The church refuses to see it. The state refuses to see it. And then what we do is we go dropping bombs all over the Middle East, and then we say we're peacekeeping and whatever, okay? But we want to completely ignore that Pritzker is still governor in Illinois, that Tom Pritzker was absolutely tied to Epstein. There's no doubt that was known before any files were even released. And yet the big porn star from the 70s and 80s hid his name, which his last name was Hyatt. But let's just ignore that there's nothing crazy about the fact that their families came from Ukraine. The fact that Hyatt connects them, but it's no relation, right?